All right, Dan, I got that. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting of 2022. Happy New Year. It's the final year of our mandate. We have a lot of unfinished business that we want to take care of, or we have to take care of, and we got the budget coming up here too. So we've got a lot ahead of us, but I'm sure we can get it done here in a timely fashion. So I'm going to remind everyone to turn their cell phones off or place them on vibrate, and remind everyone of the declaration of pecuniary interest if it arises. Our CAO, Bob there, you wanted to introduce some staff changes?
Yes, good morning, Mayor Martin, and good morning, Council. Through you, Mayor Martin, it's a pleasure to introduce two new staff members this morning to Council and the community. I'm happy to introduce David Bond, who's our acting treasurer. David comes to us with a Master of Business Administration degree from Queen's University, and most recently as Chief Financial Officer of Black Creek Labs in Peterborough. And despite some technical issues this morning, we're trying to teach him how to use the computer. He's doing a good job for us. I'd also like to introduce Arya Hijazi. Arya has come to us as our planning assistant. Arya has a Master of Planning degree from Queen's University, most recently working with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. Arya is working on his Registered Professional Planner designation. And I feel a little outnumbered here as a Western guy. I have two Queens guys here now, so we're all trying to get along, but it's okay so far. So I'm happy to introduce these two new gentlemen to our team.
All right, thank you, and yeah, welcome, guys. It's we do have a lot ahead of us, like I said, and but I'm sure you are more than capable of helping us out here. So thank you very much. With that, I'm going to move on. We do have minutes here from the council meeting from December 21st. I'll look for a motion if they're all in order to receive them. Moved by Councillor Webb. Do you have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Giroux, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay. We'll move right into planning reports. Daryl, we have a planning report here with regards to creation of a new lot.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and guests. This report is specific to application B8521 in the name of JJ Hudson. The subject property is approximately 4.5 acres and has 550 feet approximately of frontage located part lots 11 and 12 concession 5 on Mile of Memories Road. The application now before council was filed with Peterborough Land Division in September of 2021. If approved, the lot to be created or severed will comprise approximately 1.2 acres and with 150 feet of frontage, and the retained parcel would comprise the remaining 3.3 acres with 399 feet of road frontage. Prior to submission of the formal application, the consent proposal was the subject of a preliminary severance review starting in February 2019 with Peterborough County Land Division. The Peterborough County preliminary severance review concluded that the site was adjacent to or near key natural heritage features and hydrologic feature, and therefore a natural heritage evaluation will be required in order to support the application. The property owner did commission that study, and it was submitted to the county in November of 2020. It has been peer reviewed by the county peer reviewers, and they have concluded that the evaluation has adequately assessed any potential impacts. However, the county has requested additional clarification from the applicant regarding any potential significant wildlife habitat. That information flow from the applicant back to the county, as we understand, has not yet been concluded. However, based on our review of the subject application together with the submitted reports to date, it's our professional planning opinion that the application does conform to the township official plan, and it will comply with the minimum lot area and frontage of the township zoning bylaw. And therefore, we're recommending that council proceed to endorse the application. Should any issues remain incidental to the significant wildlife habitat, the county land division is the approval authority, and it will be dealt with. Those issues will be dealt with at that level. Thank you, Your Worship. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Daryl. Yeah, it appears they've went through a lot to try and make this happen. So I'll open it up to council here. We do have a recommendation there. If you're Deputy Mayor Terrell, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Thank you, Daryl, this morning for your presentation. Through you to council, there has been a considerable amount of work already done on this application. It's been to the county for peer review. So I would recommend, I will make a motion to accept the recommendation of B8521 and let it go to county.
Okay, so we have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pomeroy. Any questions or comments to the motion? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Daryl.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, with that, we'll move into delegations, and we have two delegations today, and our first delegation is Terry Reese from FOCA. Welcome, Terry.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year, and thanks for the invitation this morning. I understand I was asked by council to come just in terms of your ongoing conversation about resident concerns about aquatic plants and their controls in the township. So I'm happy to provide a few remarks on that front. Just for context, I'm a lifetime resident of Lake Cashebog, and but I am not a regulator, a biologist, a chemist, or a toxicologist. So just for context, so I do have 30+ years of working on water with experts in academia and otherwise, and I've been with FOCA for 20+ years, so we talk about this stuff a lot. So happy to provide some context. I'm also a graduate of the University of Western Ontario, so welcome to our new staff, folks. We'll look forward to your contributions, and we'll try and not hold that Queen's stuff against you. Okay. Yeah, over the past number of years, obviously, there's been a number of recreational areas that have been impacted by an increase in aquatic plants or weeds. We have to remember that these things are part of our natural ecosystems. They're why we have great fishing in the area. They're a part of our healthy lake ecosystems, and we just need to live with them. They do provide habitat and cover and food and structure. And so it's important to understand that they're part of the community, just like we are, and they're part of why we have a great natural heritage in the area. I did provide a bunch of remarks that I've provided to council. I'm not going to read them, but I'll just refer to them, and you can read those at night when you're wanting to go to sleep, maybe. But they do have some context for my remarks. Obviously, when these communities will change over time, so places that don't have weeds, I'll use weeds, even though that's I like to consider them a positive part of our community, natural heritage. But when there's a lot of them, they obviously can cause conflicts with people who want to use their water for various things, for boating and swimming and access. Some areas are obviously prone to them. So part of the reason we're seeing probably more concerns about them is that we've got new people living in new lots or redeveloping lots that are in areas that were probably considered marginal. In previous years, people wouldn't have built on these places with the boon and everyone wanting to be on the water. Now we've got people living in lots of back bays and places where they maybe wouldn't have been prime areas, and now they're concerned about the fact there's weeds there, which probably were there since the lakes were there. But notwithstanding, there is lots of concerns about the fact that that they're there and that they're impacting people's use and enjoyment of their properties. This is aggravated, by the way, by the fact that we've got introduced species that are appearing on the landscape. These are species that never were supposed to be there, that don't belong there, and that have particularly aggressive growth. And that would include things like fanwort, which we've got on Cashabog for many years, and Eurasian water milfoil in particular. There's lots of others though that are coming that we need to continue to be vigilant about managing, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. There are ways to control these things so that you can access your water, and there's lots of documented information about that, and that includes mostly manual processes that involve harvesting the weeds in the areas where you need access to your swimming area or to get in and out of your docking area with your boat. And by doing it that way, you both don't impact the larger ecosystem. You can achieve your goals of using your property the way you want to do it, and you don't aggravate the situation. Herbicides are something that we as FOCA tend to discourage, just because nature's got its own ways of dealing with itself. They're complex dynamic systems. We feel particularly strongly about the fact that adding poison to a place where your kids swim, you get your household drinking water, just can't be a good idea, and that's why it's discouraged in the EU and elsewhere, and why there are limits on this kind of stuff. The use of diquat, which is really the only one that's approved, or reward is what it's called. It's the only one approved in Ontario. It's a chemical that's approved by Health Canada or by the feds, and the application of it is the jurisdiction of the province. So I provided some of the contact information in my notes there about who's allowed to use the stuff and where and when it's appropriate, and some terms and conditions about how it's to be used. There are health concerns about anything that's designed to kill things has obviously got impacts, not just on the target species. And in the case of reward, it not only knocks down Eurasian water milfoil, which tends to be the thing that's the most annoying and a thing that most people are concerned about, but it's not targeted. It's highly effective at killing the above ground parts of plants. Many of them are beneficial and things that we want there, and that provide habitat for bass and muskie and other things. So it's not a targeted thing. So it not only does it knock down the species that we don't like, but it also impacts the species that are there and are integral part of the plant community. I should note that Ontario's had a ban on the cosmetic use of pesticides for 12 years now. I mean, the province discourages the application of poisons just for the sake of aesthetics. The use of these kind of chemicals in water really is a cosmetic use. It's for nothing other than an aesthetic management purpose. And I will say that it's and importantly, whether you're for or against them or like them or feel strongly about it, it's an ongoing problem that doesn't get solved by the application of herbicides. In other words, it will knock back the species and it will do it for in a temporary basis, but it will not be a long-term fix. So that means the roots are still intact. These things will grow back every year. And that means that you're setting yourself up for not only possibly aggravating a bunch of things, never mind the health concerns, but it can also cause, more material to settle on the bottom. It can aggravate the low oxygen conditions, which can lead to algal blooms. It can lead to more weed growth in future years. So this is not a magic bullet. There is not a magic bullet for this stuff. So the application of herbicides is something that needs to be very thoughtfully and very thought about if you're using it as a management technique. We feel strongly that it's not an appropriate use for aesthetic use, notwithstanding the fact that it's currently legal. I know there's lots of people that are feeling strongly about its use generally, and in this region there's lots of people that live on the lakes and that use the lakes that feel strongly about the fact that we shouldn't be putting poisons into our lakes, that where we swim, we recreate, and we drink the water. We know that through the work that we've done with a number of aquatic scientists at University of UOIT in Oshawa and at Trent and elsewhere, that these are temporary fixes, that there are other options like harvesting them manually that can manage it. and that there is lots of advice out there for people that that can be encouraged to do less impactful ways of managing their water. I did provide a whole bunch of other information and resources which can be made available to anyone who's interested or contacts council. Focus certainly got a lot of information about healthy environments and healthy waterfronts that we would encourage anyone to look at. And I'll just add that particularly about the invasive species thing, and these plants are, you know, things that either belonged elsewhere, that used to be an aquarium plant that got dumped, or came mostly through boating traffic. This is something that neighboring municipalities are looking at very seriously and are investing in North Kawartha, notably, you know, in the range of $100,000 to support local lake associations in their efforts to combat this stuff. So I'd encourage council to continue to think about how we can keep our local waterways healthy and safe, and do that in a way that's sustainable and that's not going to be have all the negative impacts that might be involved in some short-term fixes like the use of herbicides. So that's really all I had to add. I mean, there are some notes there. I could take any questions if you're interested. We're happy to continue to work on this stuff with our contacts. The local members are local associations are members of FOCA, and we're happy to continue our education. But happy to do what we can to continue to help people to do what they can on their properties to lower the risks, to not aggravate the problem, and to keep our communities and our lakes healthy. So that's all I really had to say. But if you had any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, thanks, Terry. And yeah, you've HBM's always promoted our, you know, healthy, clean lakes, and we did have an education program at one time, and maybe we haven't been doing as well as we were at promoting healthy shorelines. But anything that you have, I'm sure we could put on our website, and that's kind of why we thought it'd be best to invite you here to, you know, it's been a long time since you gave us an update with regards to what FOCA is up to, and this is a really important thing. The boat wash station idea there, I think Deputy Mayor Drill brought that up last year about looking at that, and I know North Kawartha has a lot of initiatives on the go this year, and I'm actually hoping to talk to the mayor up there. She said she had some things to update me on last week, and we just haven't been able to connect. So, but yeah, there's lots of good things going. I did see your hand up. Did you have one other thing there, Terry?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, and I know this is an ongoing challenge for planning, is that to follow up and site plan control and that kind of thing for individual properties. But, you know, we can all do a lot by maintaining the natural heritage that's on our properties, and especially at the shoreline. It really can do so much for not just the aesthetic of keeping our areas natural. I mean, your website just got updated with another beautiful picture of an area lake. I mean, that's what this area is so renowned for. It's got beautiful nature, right? And, you know, so there's a lot that within the planning realm, I think, that we can continue to do to encourage people to maintain the natural shoreline infrastructure, and that's the trees and shrubs and that kind of thing. It's better for erosion, it's better for algae, it's better for habitat, it's better for plants and animals and fish, and it can help reduce the risks from you know, all this plant growth if you're not highly maintaining your property right at the shore's edge. So area will be in touch. I'll talk to you some more probably, but we're working on some stuff around how do we do planning, you know, what's an effective and reasonable way to provide good planning advice that's long-standing and sustainable, so the people that have properties are doing their part, each of us doing our part to support healthy lakes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to open up to council here. Council got any questions or comments? Councillor Ellis, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank Terry for his presentation this morning. Very informative. As a fellow Laker myself for many years, much appreciated listening to your comments. Just one last thing I'd like to say is the education part of it is so important, and I think our own municipality throughout this council need to step up to the plate a little more and promote and educate all the good things that you brought to the table this morning there. But very informative. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Ellis. And I think particularly since there's a lot of, everyone's getting busy these days, everyone's building, there's a lot of people new to the neighborhood that might not have some of the history and heritage and that sort of thing. And it's important to remind people, everybody, long timers and new people, that, you know, there's a reason these lakes are so fantastic, and that's that we've done a pretty darn good job over the last 100 years and enjoying them, but doing it in a way that's sustainable.
And I think the lake associations can play a major role in the education part of it, Terry, right?
Yeah, right on.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Deputy Mayor Drow, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Thank you, Terry, for coming and again this morning and giving us an update. Thank you for bringing up the about the natural heritage on our shorelines, because there's a tremendous, I would say, a tremendous turnover sometimes on the lakes. New people coming in. Some of them don't know our aquatic plants, whether they're milfoil or whatever. So to take education one step farther, that certainly plays a role in that. And I did read your bulletins, and it's right on. Anything, as the mayor has said, that our municipality can do, whether it's get a hold of the feds or the province, I think we should sit down and figure out something, because it is important. We don't want chemicals in our lakes. It's a little bit of effort to get out in the water and pull weeds, as long as you're pulling the right ones. And as you've stated, Terry, a lot of these weeds are natural to our lakes, but there's a lot that aren't. So we don't want to be pulling weeds that are natural, even though there's a new cottager in there and it's bothering them. So there's a trade-off, and that's where the education comes in. So thanks, Terry, for coming.
Thanks so much. You're welcome.
Okay. Bob, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, we do have a guest from, or a question from one of our guests in the audience. If I could just read that for Terry, and perhaps he can respond. So Terry, the question is, have you discussed this with the province? And if so, how do they justify issuing permits if the product is dangerous to our lakes?
Right. I think there's a movement afoot to have these discussions. Folk has not had a specific discussion recently about banning these things. I think it's probably on our radar. There are some rationale, and I would say the only one that I've seen that has some sort of ongoing mandate that would really oblige or justify why you would be trying to manage these things, and that tends to be on the historic canals, where they've either the Trent Severn or the Rideau, where they've got an obligation to maintain navigation, and where, as a last resort, they can use it. Now, this is subject to, as I said, federal and provincial jurisdiction, long-standing practices that doesn't always mean they're good. I think times are changing, and I think you're going to see a lot of pushback locally and otherwise in terms of whether these products or this approach should continue to be authorized.
Okay, good job, Terry, because it's hard when you get those questions when you're not prepared for them. So hopefully there is some questions from one of our lakes, that Jack's Lake in particular, that has some big concerns here. So I imagine they'll be at a future meeting, and some questions will come out there. And if we have to, we'll reach out to you to get some help with this. It's something that we take seriously. And like you said, you made a good point with the new, like with all these people moving to the area and, building on lots that were subpar, like it's, they were a weedy back bay, and they want to make them a swimming area. Well, you know what, that's could be a problem in the future. So we'll have to deal with it. And I think this is just the start of a long conversation. So hopefully we can make some changes and help things go in the right direction. So go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, and I'll let you carry on with your agenda, but there's lots of opportunities, both through FOCA, through the lake associations, through council. I mean, you've got lots of information when people can actually get to the council offices. I know you have had a good display of information. If you can include that information with planning applications, or when you're in discussions with people that are doing lot development, and the CA is obviously a source that gets involved in planning applications too. So I'll put Tim on the hook there for doing their part as well. So appreciate the time this morning, and look forward to a good year ahead. And you've got lots to do in your last mandate, and I'm sure we'll be back talking to you some more through the summer for sure.
All right, thanks, Terry. And yeah, I don't know whether it's a coincidence or what that Tim's on the same call, but It wasn't really about this, it's more about budget, but thank you, Terry. I'll look for a motion. If there's no other questions, I'll look for a motion to receive the delegation from Terry.
Motion to receive, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Ellis and seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, well, thank you, Terry. And Tim, you're our next delegation. Welcome. And it's with regards to the draft budget that's out there. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Martin, and good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. And as usual, you know, it's fantastic to be in front of council and have an opportunity to have a discussion about the budget and other issues or concerns that that you folks may want to discuss. I just wanted to say, you know, it is nice coming to Havelock-Belmont-Methuen Council. Of all the councils in the watershed, I think over the years, you folks are the ones that have remained steadfast and supportive of the authority. And I know you folks, I think I can safely say better than any other council in our watershed. So it's always great to come here and have a chat with you folks. Just following up a little bit on what Terry mentioned from the Conservation Authority's perspective, I'd just like to also add or suggest that what he is discussing and talking about in terms of invasive species, it's so important and critical to get out and do as much as possible, try to get ahead of this or stay on top of the issue. Because I think everybody knows or has at least heard, you know, climate change is on the way. And as climate change does start to have an impact on our local environments, it will increase or create a habitat or an environment that is going to be more conducive for some of these invasive species. So it's not something to look forward to, obviously, but it's something that we need to stay on top of. And if there's anything that the Conservation Authority can do to assist with that education component, whether it's simply putting something on our website, linking to you folks or to FOCA, I'm more than happy to try to work with any organization that is looking forward to trying to stay on top of this. So yeah, Terry, and actually I've had, ironically, I've just had a recent request from an organization to support the use of herbicides. So I'm really thankful and glad that that Terry was here to explain FOCA's position and you know, in general, why the use of herbicides is not good. So it helps me to form our opinion or response to this organization. And once again, we can go at it from a united kind of perspective or one voice kind of thing. So thanks very much. I appreciate that, Terry, and council for supporting FOCA. Yes, I'm here to speak primarily about the budget, but once again, if there's something else we'd like to talk about, that's great. I really don't have too much additional information to pass on to council about the budget. I do want to reinforce the fact that the Conservation Authority and the board has made every attempt to control or reduce expenses where possible. The Conservation Authority's budget really is divided into two budget issues, really. One is the operations and administration portion of the budget, and the other is the capital budget. There are really two aspects of the authority's budget that are in some ways are kind of divergent. And the reason for that is through the support of HBM and our other member municipalities, we really have had an opportunity to get a really good handle, if I can put it that way, on the watershed operations and admin budget. We've over the past few years, we've dealt with that issue of trying to keep the overall increase to that portion of the budget under control. And I think the last 2 years and this current budget in particular has shown the effort that that the board has made to try to keep the operations increases at a reasonable rate. And given that this has been a 2021 in particular has been a year of increased inflation, I think the overall increase of 1.08% to the authority's budget really is reasonable, and I think it shows the hard work that staff and the board have done to control that. The capital budget, which we seem to have less control of, and that that boils down to we have an infrastructure throughout the watershed, that assets that are aging. There's no doubt about it. I have Crow Valley's dams that we own and operate have been in place now for 30, 40 years, 50 years, I suppose, if you include, well, we do have to include Wollaston Dam. So those assets are approaching or are in the mid-life of the life of an asset. And as we approach those midlife years, like each and every one of us, we know and understand that assets don't stay the same, whether we're talking about roads, bridges, or dams. So what we're faced with, and we've actually started this back in the mid-20s, in 2012 to 2015 in particular. We spent a lot of time and effort on, let's say, Belmont Dam in order to make some improvements with that dam, and Wollaston as well. So what's happened is, I guess, in some sense, our largest dam in the watershed, only surpassing Belmont by a capacity in terms of flow. It now also needs repairs to that dam. And the intent of the authority is to undertake these repairs now, somewhat preventative approach, I suppose, so that the repairs or the issues don't become worse, and then the repairs become more expensive as time goes on. So we would like to tackle it right now. I will be submitting an application to the water erosion control and infrastructure program at the province, the WECI program, to request 50-50 funding support from the province. So it's a good opportunity for us to take advantage of those dollars. Once again, the province was subjected to their whim, I suppose, as whether that program is going to continue in the future or not. So as always, I'd like to take advantage of that. The other infrastructure asset that is in need of an upgrade is, and perhaps I've talked to you folks about this before in previous council meetings, but is our flood forecasting and warning system. It's a system that has served us well. When it was first installed, it was the latest, best software that we could get, the best equipment. The authority was able to invest in a very good system at the time, and for 30 plus years, it has, like I said, served us very well. It's just at this point, because of the software and the aging equipment, every year that we don't do an upgrade, we're putting ourselves at risk of that system failing. And Murphy's Law would have it, I'm sure, that the system would probably fail when we need it the most. So we're trying to be proactive and replace that or upgrade and replace the equipment to a more modern, well, it will be, it's a modern system compared to what we have. We'll be using radar instead of actual tape, physical tape that we put down in our gauge houses. We'll have much better access. We'll have the same information, but we'll have software that will allow us to use that data to produce or reports or information that will better serve the public moving forward. So basically, at the end of the day, we have a operations budget that has virtually stayed the same. And then we have a capital budget where the increase in the dollar amount is considerable compared to the prior year. But that being said, overall, the capital budget increase is $54,000, I believe, approximately $55,000. And so when you think of what we're trying to do in terms of repairs to a dam, plus upgrading a flood forecasting and warning system, I think it really is good value for the money, even though when you take, and the percentage, yes, the percentage does look considerably higher than prior years, but once again, the overall weight of the capital budget is only approximately 20% of the overall budget when we combine the two. So in terms of actual dollars for budget increases, I think, like I said, I think it's pretty good value for, pretty good bang for your buck. Now, there are some things that that we did not include in the budget that at some point, you know, we will have to address, but the authority in 2021, we had I believe it's a 14-year-old vehicle that just kind of died on us. And at some point we need to replace that vehicle. So we looked at getting a used vehicle in mid 2021 to replace that one. But it just didn't make any sense at the time because the price of used vehicles just at that time just seemed exorbitant. It just went through the roof. So we held back on that purchase of a used vehicle. It would have been nice to have included a used vehicle or preferably a new vehicle in the 2022 budget, but we did not do that because of these other capital budget issues. There's some tools that I would like to purchase for staff. And when I say tools, it's equipment to help our regulations officers collect data and use that information to better assess properties, whether it's severances or permits for development. This tool is it's a piece of equipment that actually connects to satellites that allows us to take considerably more accurate elevations on property. We did not include that for 2022. And there's also an upgrade that we'll need to address here at the office so that we can meet the AODA requirements. That was not included in the budget. So those three items alone could have doubled the actual ask for the capital portion of the budget. So that's kind of the budget in a nutshell. I'm more than happy to ask any specific questions if you have them, folks. There are, I should mention as well, there are a number of options that have been presented to our board by staff to consider how we want to move forward with funding for the 2022 budget. And you folks as well, your input or suggestions on that would be very useful. I believe I included those options in a letter that was sent around to staff. We can go over those if you'd like. if you want to take the time to discuss those. I know you folks are really busy, so I'm more than happy to either come back at another time, or we are going to be discussing those options at our upcoming January board meeting as well. So that's about it that I have at the moment, Mayor Martin, and happy to discuss the budget or any other issues that you'd like to talk about.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And as the representative on the Crow, I've said it many times. It's a very lean operation at the Crow, and I think they do really well with what they have to work with. And when you hear things about 14-year-old vehicle, we've had discussions around vehicles in our township, and it's like when they're 7 years old or whatever. It's one of those things that they do what they can. The two capital projects here are really important, and I think it was kind of ironic that our meeting was held at the same time the things were happening in BC. So when we talked about flood forecasting and dam work, it was kind of timely because we were all looking at what was happening out there, and it's like, wow, we don't want to see that happen here. But we have had some scares around different parts of the Crow as far as dams, and you know, maybe one of the openings not open up on time and backing up. There's been different things over the years that I've heard, and it's like, do we want to get into that? If you leave it too long, you could have a lot of flooding problems when it comes to a dam not operating properly. So the Marmor Dam has a lot of water going through it, like Tim said, and hopefully the grant will go through and it'll help us on that side of it. But there's so many other things that need to be dealt with at the Crow, and I think all that stuff that he sent to us, if you read it and you have any questions, you can phone Tim, or you can reach out to me. Like the car thing really kills me as far as they do a lot of dam adjustments over a year, and we have probably one of the biggest conservation authorities as far as square miles. We're probably up there with some of the bigger ones, but you're covering a lot of area with old vehicles, so it's just not a safe thing, and it's something that's going to have to be looked at eventually here. So I'm going to open it up to council here. If you have any questions or comments here for Tim, now's the chance there. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
Through you, Mayor Martin. First of all, Tim, thank you for coming. It's always good to have you and explain the situation. I'll keep it brief. My focus on your budget was the capital side of your budget, and it was very good to see that your focus is on the dams, as you spoke to, and the forecasting system. I think is very, very important. It's a well done budget. You should be congratulated. The only comment I have is, and I think I've said it before, you guys down there in CVC, pare your budgets right down to minimal. So I don't know how you do what you do with what you do. My fear sometimes is we pare it too much, and it may come back to bite us in other days. You've already spoke today of three things perhaps that you would like to see your staff have, and I think all the townships who contribute, and we're one of the biggest contributors, as everybody knows, but we should take that in consideration. If you don't have the tools in the toolbox, it's pretty hard to come back later and say, well, you should have did this and you should have did that. So thanks for your presentation, Tim, and I just keep that in mind, that I have that fear sometimes that we try and do too much with too little. Thanks, Mayor Martin.
Okay. Is there any other questions from council? The one thing there, Tim, you did have a number on the increase, what it means to have Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. We pay 39% of the levy there, but was it like $20,000 or in that ballpark somewhere for our increase?
Yes, Mayor Martin.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah, no, I've got the table here. I anticipated discussing about that. The actual dollar increase for HBM for 2022 is approximately $23,000.
Okay, so we do have some budget discussions coming up at the Crow. So I really recommend council look at some of those things. There was ideas around borrowing, and that works sometimes for the bigger municipalities or whatever. But for the Crow, some people were a little timid on getting into, with such a small amount to work with. A lot didn't feel it made sense, but some did. But so we're going to have those discussions at our next meeting. But if council has any questions or comments around some of the things that Tim has put forward to us, give it a read. You can reach out to me or reach out to Tim, and we'll see what we can do at the next meeting around the budget. I don't know whether it would be passed there, but sometimes, if there's no objections from the rest of the municipalities, I've seen it go through at that meeting. But go ahead, Councillor Ellis.
Excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Tim. You mentioned in your budget the new equipment for flood control, and yeah, sure, it makes you nervous when you're controlling dams. So I have a question. The present equipment you have to identify flood control, is it performing or working for you now? The new equipment would be just better and more high tech? Is that a fair question?
Through you, Mayor Martin, that's a very good question, Councillor Ellis. I'll just give you an example, just to kind of maybe that would be the best way to answer your question. This past fall and in the summer as well, we have 13 gauges that we actually monitor for lake levels and flows. And this summer and fall, at times, there were up to 4 gauges where we had difficulty assessing the data through failure equipment or equipment failure. And other issues with the equipment that was actually installed at the gauges. So, and some of those periods where we were not able to get the data is very disconcerting, because it wasn't just for a day or two, it was for a lengthy time period. So, I mean, they've been resolved, but the system is showing signs of breaking down, literally, and creating these problems or issues where we're just not able to get the data that we need to do our jobs, basically. So it's we've already initiated through our reserves. The board has already allowed us to initiate or begin the transition, and what we're looking for in the 2022 budget is the remaining dollars to fulfill the transition. I mean, we could have left it another year or two, and try to spread it out over approximately 3 or 4 years. But my biggest concern is, as a risk manager, we need to be prepared for the public at all times. And what happened this past year, it just showed me in particular that we just can't take that risk or chance that we will not be able to have the correct data at the right time.
Thank you, Tim. Not questioning your judgment in any way. I guess what I was thinking, with 2 large capital projects coming forward in this budget, the one that I spoke to, when you mentioned that you have other items that are called tools for your staff, would it have been a better choice to facilitate some of those needs if this equipment is still doing the job? And that was the point of my question anyway.
Through you again, Mayor Martin. Yeah, it boils down to priorities, and I've made, I think this is the biggest tool or priority for us to ensure that this particular piece of equipment or system remains functioning at the highest possible level. It's just, yeah, I just felt that now's the time to take the plunge and make the change.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And just one last quick comment. As a resident of Belmont Lake, several times over the summer, I get positive comments coming forward about the Crow Valley controlling water levels, and it's all due to some of the dam work. So keep up good work. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And yeah, so we'll deal with that as we move forward. Is there any other questions from council to Tim? And the other part is the changes that the Conservation Authority is going through. All conservation authorities are dealing with the new regulations from the province, and I think we're all doing the same things. Here again, the Crow doesn't have a lot of non-core items on the books, so we have a couple things, but really nothing compared to some of these bigger CAs. So I think this report is pretty well the same as what other CAs are reporting. Is that right, Tim?
Through you, Mr. Mayor Martin. Yes, absolutely. And in some ways, I've said this to some of my peers or counterparts across the province. I think for this transition period, based on the regulations that have come out, I think in some small way, we're fortunate that this time around we are a small CA without a lot of those extra programs and services to deal with. It makes this transition a little bit easier and smoother. Although it's still going to be a lot of work for myself and staff here. There's a number of different reports and things that are steps that we have to go through to ensure that we're complying with the new regulations. I just want to, and thanks very much for bringing this up. I just wanted to inform council. I've just completed a draft of our inventory of programs and services, which is due to the member municipalities in our watershed by the end of February. So I'll be bringing that draft inventory to the board in January for their approval. And once the board approves it, then I'll distribute it to our municipalities. And once again, I'm more than happy to come to council or discuss it with your staff as we enter into that next stage of consultation about the inventory. It's pretty darn straightforward, folks. Like Mayor Martin just stated, we don't venture far from the core mandate at all. There's one or two little items, but nothing in comparison to the overall budget and our programs and services.
Okay, so, well, thank you, Tim, and we can save that for another day. We always enjoy having you come here, and it's always better for you to explain it than sometimes I miss some things here maybe, and I think council enjoys hearing it right from you. So thank you for coming out today. And if there's no other questions for Tim, I'll look for a motion to receive his delegation. Do I have a mover there? Deputy Mayor Giroux. And a seconder? Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, well, thank you, Tim, and I guess we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you, folks. Have a great rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to staff reports for information. We have 3 reports here. The one is an incident summary for the fire department. Is there any questions around that? The next is the building department activity report. There's June to December there. Is there any questions around that? Okay. Seeing none, and the last is closed session meeting summary from CAO Bob. So I'll look for a motion to receive the reports for information.
Motion to receive, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into staff reports with follow-up action. And the first one we have is Aria, planning assistant, with request for purchase of shoreline reserve land. So go ahead, Aria.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, everyone present over at the call. And we had a request from Shannon Tomlinson of Methuen Concession 7, Part Lot 11, with municipal address of 105 Fire Route 75N. This was in relation to acquiring the budding shoreline crown reserve. We would like to, the township has identified no concerns nor any objections to the proposed acquisition of the approximately the 134 frontage shoreline of the Crown Reserve, and that we ask council to endorse the application.
Okay, thank you. And just, I forgot to ask you, Bob, did you make note of Councillor Pomeroy left the meeting?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Yes, we have made note of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with this here, it's a common thing. It happens quite a bit here. Has council got any questions or comments with regards to this report? There is a recommendation there. Councillor Webb, go ahead.
Yeah, just a motion to approve the recommendation, Murray.
Okay, moved by Councillor Webb. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. With any comments or questions around that? Okay, all in favor of the motion? And that's carried. My hand disappeared on the background there. Anyways, the next one here is a report from our acting treasurer here with regards to the COLA adjustment.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, David.
So the purpose of this policy is to objectively and be entirely transparent, addressing the cost of living adjustment for our staff and our counselors here at HBM. So we sought out both historically to look at how this has been done and how we might be able to do it or improve it going forward. Previously or historically, there is no rhyme or reason as to what has been used for COLA. What the proposal in front of you has is essentially taking the COLA based on the Bank of Canada CPI, or Consumer Price Index, and looking at the percentage change year over year. So applying that year over year, we have 4.72%. That is high given the current pandemic, given our global supply chain that's been interrupted, and given the COVID grant dollars that are being injected in the economy. So to offset that, we proposed a minimum and maximum of 1.5% to 3%. So the 4.72%, we took a concession to ratchet that down to the maximum of 3%. And those guardrails, the maximum minimum, are what we propose going forward. To look at it again at the next annual review, the guidelines or those the maximum minimum will stay consistent. So really, we were looking for a consistent approach, a formula approach that everyone can understand that is the best, most objective way to do this. We looked at our peers, neighboring municipalities, and found this to be the best method for HBM. It's also a practice that's consistently used with other neighboring municipalities in arriving at their budget annual review. So I'll open it up to questions and look forward to answering.
Okay, all right then. So we there is a recommendation here, and it is nice to see something like a formula in place. You know, I've looked back at several years, and there was no formula to come up with the number. And I know this is used at, I know one neighboring municipality that uses this formula, and it seems to work really well. It's really hard. This is one of the hardest things council has as far as dealing with, you know, wages, but that's part of our job. And like as far as our own wages, but that's part of our job. And I think the big thing here is to have something in place that is consistent and you can go to every year to come up with a number. So I'll open it up to council here. What's your thoughts on this report? Deputy Mayor Terrell. There you go.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Martin. Without piggybacking off you, I think I would like to make a recommendation to approve the recommendation and get it on the floor for discussion. I think reading the policy that David's brought forward pretty well explains it, because in the past, as you said, we never had a yardstick or a policy to go by. It was just each year we would throw numbers in the hat and see what somebody else did. This way, next year, if it's 1%, that's where we're going to be. So I like the formula. So that's why I'm making a motion to accept the recommendation.
Okay. All right then. So we have a mover for this. Is there a seconder for that? And we can get it on the floor for discussion. Councillor Ellis, you're seconding that?
Second with a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to David. Good to see, some kind of a formula and a policy in place for us, long overdue. So I read back through your report this morning, in that, if I recall properly, the anticipation is partway through the year, although it is because of the circumstances in our world today here has pushed us at the 4.7, but it's anticipated that, say, midsummer, it could be much less than 4.7. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if the anticipation is not correct and it's higher than 4.7, would we have a concern there, or should we have something in the policy to address that?
It's a good question, and we really are going into an unknown with the global pandemic and with
Right.
What it's going to be next week, next month. I think this can be revisited on an annual basis, and if need be, we could put in an amendment on a case-by-case basis. I feel this approach is relatively conservative. I find it to be objective and I dare say the word fair. But if we have an open mind and an approach that we can revisit this towards the end of 2023 and do this on an annual basis to see how this policy is working in an equitable way, I think this would be a fair approach.
Yeah, and I totally agree about the equitable approach. I'm also concerned, as we all know, people are having a real hard time right now. Mm-hmm. So that was my concern, is that at 4.7, say in the June timeframe, for an example, that it could be even much higher than 4.7, and our policy says we're going to give a 3% increase. So whether we deal with it and through an amendment, or I guess I'm just looking for suggestions and advice from both you and council. But that was my concern. Mm-hmm. But great to see a policy and a plan in place for it anyway. Thank you.
So David, I think, I was always taught, as long as when we're doing policies, as long as they're defendable and reasonable, that's how you move ahead with them. And whether it's easy or not, you do the best you can. And I think, like Councillor Ellis said, this policy is long overdue. It gives you something to work with. And like you said, it can always be amended if there's, next year at budget time, if council of the day decides that they want to adjust that, that's when the time would be. If we have some extreme numbers like we have this year and it comes off at 5%, I'm sure that'll be discussion of at the next budget, but for now, I personally feel it's well done, and it gives us a start. And like you said, it's transparent. People can see it and see how it's dealt with. And I'm sure we'll hear some comments around it as far as in the future on how we do things. But I think this is a good start. So we did have a mover and a seconder. Is there any other comments around this, the motion? Speak to the motion, Councillor Webb.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind council, the 4.72 given out by the Bank of Canada is more of a number for guidance, in that yes, we're here talking about what kind of a pay increase we're going to have for our employees, but it's not mandated across, say, the business world. So when we hand our employees out a 3% pay raise, the guy working down at Foodland doesn't necessarily get a 3% raise just because the Bank of Canada says it's 4.7. And I'd like the rest of council to realize that I think Councillor Ellis said we are a lot of people that aren't getting 3%, they're not getting 2%, they might not even be getting 1%. So, I'm definitely not going to be going for anything over 3%. I don't care what the Bank of Canada rate says. And to me, I would even be open to looking maybe towards a cap of 2.5. And on the other end, possibly the 1.5 could be maybe moved down to 1. So you have a range of 1 to 2.5. And if you get outside that, I ask other council members or staff to go into the private business world and see what these people are getting for raises in this economy, because it's nowhere near 3%. So, I think we need to deal with reality here. And the other thing I was going to say was, I know there's a motion on the floor, but so I guess I'll let that go.
Okay.
I really don't. I'll just say it. I just don't think we as a council should be taking any raise, because just for myself, I know my meeting schedule is limited, so I probably haven't, that I have in previous years. So I really can't see voting myself a 3% raise. So, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I've said before, with the way that works, I know even for Deputy Mayor Trudeau and myself, even at the 3%, my 3% would be on the council wage. And I really like that. And I wish there was a way of doing that with upper management, but it'd be a really complicated formula to try and come up with it. I've talked about this for years, but I think it works out to more like a 2.5% already for the mayor's wage, which I have no problem with. And I totally agree with you. It can be worked on, but we do have a motion on the floor right now with this recommendation from staff. And so I'm going to call the question if there's no other comments around that.
I just had one last question for, I guess, all of council, in that we are dealing with a pecuniary issue here, in that we're voting ourselves and everybody else raises that we don't have. So I'm wondering, maybe we should wait till we have every member of council here to vote on this. I don't think it's really a time sensitive issue.
Yeah, it's not, but it's just one person. If you want to call a recorded vote, and if it's going to make a difference, we could deal with it that way. But I really don't know whether it's going to matter if one person is missing. We can hold off the vote for this.
No, I just put it out there for consideration, and that,
yeah,
so I think there's obviously, like you said, Jim, there's something we don't get everybody here for, but I think this is something, especially maybe the public would like everybody here for.
Okay. Well, I do have a motion, so I'm going to have to call the question unless the mover wanted to change anything there. It's we do have a motion and a seconder, so I have to move on with this. And if it doesn't go through, we can, well, that's probably where it'll end up anyways. It'll be coming back. So so I'm going to call the question here with that. Councillor Ellis, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I see Councillor Pomeroy maybe joining us again here.
Okay. All right. So
if that's suitable.
Yeah, that probably works out perfect. We could bring him up to speed here if you like. And She's read the report.
Yeah, okay, where are we?
Hello,
Sorry,
Barry.
boy.
Yeah, we were just talking about the cost of living adjustment and the policy that is being recommended here. And I'm sure you've read the report. Did you have any comments or questions around it?
No comments or questions. Well, maybe one comment. I think I discussed it with Dave. We have a bylaw there saying that whatever the top dog gets, council gets the same. And so that the gap doesn't spread.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything seems okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it works. It's with the council end of it, it works on whatever council gets. It's the other way around. Whatever council gets is what the mayor and deputy mayor get as far as the percentage goes to the councilor's wage. So, anyways, okay. So is there any other questions around this? We do have a motion on the floor, Councillor Pomeroy, that Deputy Mayor Jerome moved and Councillor Ellis seconded that we go with the recommendation. Is there any other comments around this before I call a question?
I'm
Sorry
I'm still not clear, Jim, on what you said about the percentage. What we've done in the past, and I think we have a thing on the books, that whatever percentage the mayor gets, if it's like 3% of say $2,000 is worth more than 3% of $1,000, you know? So we always took the top one, which would be you, and all council got the same amount of money that you got.
Okay, and I always thought it was the other way around. So
No.
that being said, okay, thank you. Because that being said, I'm gonna have to look at that again because I couldn't support more than 3% increase for myself. So that's what it would do. And in the end, it would give myself and Deputy Mayor Giroux more than 3%, which personally I couldn't accept that. I thought it was on the lower wage, and that's kind of where I thought with staff it would be nice if there was a way of doing that. But so okay.
Well, actually, through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, it's quite simple. Whatever 3% of what you make goes on to the rest of the council. Like if it's like I say, if you get $15 raise, all of council gets $15 raise. Like that's what I'm saying is it doesn't vary for anyone. Like the deputy mayor gets the same, and all the councilors get like the $15.
So what that's doing there, what I'm saying, Councillor Pomeroy, is it's giving council would be in theory making more than 3% raise because they're going to get what the mayor and deputy mayor are getting. The increase would be on those based on the mayor's wage, and so that would put it up probably like a 3.5% increase for councilors, and I couldn't support that either myself. And with it being tied into this recommendation, I do have to look at that again. And I'm not doubting you. You're probably right. I always understood it was the other way around, and I should have paid more attention to it. But if that's the way it is, I couldn't support this recommendation at this time. I would like to look at the council side of things. I could support the staff side of it, but the council side of it, I do have a problem with taking, like with it being more than 3%. I think we talked about that earlier as far as in the future. So with the council part of it being included in this motion, I'm just saying I would probably, I couldn't support it on the council side of things. I think that needs to be looked at for this policy moving forward. So Deputy Mayor Giroux, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I would ask David, can you give us some kind of a clarification on this? Because perhaps I was thinking in the wrong direction myself.
Yes, definitely. The way the document's written is it is a 3% cap across everyone, both our direct employees to HBM and to our councilors. So I would like, the way I have it framed in my mind is that this is carte blanche, it's across the board, and 3% is capped for everyone. So if we go there with this premise and that in mind, are we on the same page now?
No, because I think what Councillor Pomeroy is talking about, we always worked on trying to keep the spread from the deputy mayor to the mayor consistent. So we always stayed the same spread all the way through. Whenever adjustments were made, we kept, I think it's a $5,000 difference. And if you do it the other way, it's like kind of like, you know, if you have an employee at $100,000, an employee at $50,000, you're going to see them spread. It's just going to keep spreading. The same thing would happen at the council level. So I didn't have a problem the other way around when it was, you know, based on the councillor's wage, but I should have looked at that. I've just always thought it was that way. But Councillor Ellis, you had a question?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We got two different topics going here. Our treasurer's brought forward a policy which we agreed on at 3%, right, across the board, as Dave reiterated there. Now, the other topic is the fact that the 3% given across the board gives, for an example, the mayor a bigger spread between the mayor and the councillor. So we got two different topics going here.
Yeah, it's just a clarification, Councillor Ellis, is, you know, I totally supported the motion, but I obviously, it sounds like I had it wrong, that the mayor's wage was, the increase for the mayor was based on the councillor's wage, but it sounds like I've got it reversed, and that's the only thing that's changed here in the motion is, you know, the council side of things. I totally support the staff side of things, but it goes back to what Councillor Webb said about discussing the councillor side of things and breaking it out maybe. But Bob, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Council several years ago passed a policy with respect to councillor compensation, and the gap between mayor and deputy mayor is 7,000, and the gap between deputy mayor and councillors is 1,000. When applying the cost of living adjustment, if you apply it to councillors, then that would mean the mayor gets less. It keeps the gap. The goal is to keep the gap consistent. And that's been council's policy. Obviously it's council's prerogative to change that policy at any time, but that's the way it's been applied. If you apply it to the higher end, to the mayor's position, obviously the councillors need to get more in order to keep the gap consistent.
And that's what that would do with this recommendation here, or with that side of the thing. If it was going to be based on, if councillors were going to get the increase based on the mayor's wage, it's going to actually, the councillors would get, well, I don't know if they can with this policy. With this one, it might not matter because they can't go over 3%. Otherwise, they would have to be given 3.5% to keep it consistent, to keep that gap consistent. So go ahead, Councillor Pomeroy.
So in essence, you're saying that councillors get 3%, and whatever they get for 3%, you get the councillor's wage, you know, added in like this, the same amount that the councillors get.
Yeah,
and you're not getting 3% of your full salary.
No, but it would keep it consistent on the.
Yeah, well, we did have it consistent, but it was the other way around before.
Okay. Okay, and this one here, it does stay at 3%. Like, I don't know, I can't go more than, if they're getting what the mayor's getting, how does it work, David? Will they get 3.5% to kind of keep the gap?
Yes, that could be the case. Now, the way I understood it, Jim, is the way you had it, in that it was based on the councillor's base, not in your base, and it was played forward. So therefore, it would be equitable, or what you want.
Yeah, and that way it's only one person, or well, and Deputy Mayor Dro is going to be hit a little bit there with the difference there from council to deputy. But you know, like I say, I always understood it that way, and I don't have a problem with that. but I do have a problem if we're going to be going over the 3% by doing it the other way. I couldn't support that side of it. So, and this might be an extreme year that we're looking at this 3%, but it might not be. So I'm just saying for this motion today is on the recommendation that we adopt this adjustment for members of council and staff. And with that being brought forward, I think it needs a little more discussion on the council side of things on what I'm trying to say. It wouldn't work with what's here right now. And that's just my thoughts. We can do the vote and see where it falls out, but I would prefer to see it the other way around, actually, that the 3% would be to the council, and I would just take the whatever works out to keep the $5,000 spread. And I think it's like 2.5 or 2.4%, but I don't have a problem with that to keep the spread. This is an extreme year. Things are, you know, it might be the thing of the future, but right now, let's hope it's a extreme year, and you know, with kind of a little different approach. But so I'm gonna have to call the question here, unless there's any more questions or comments. The motion made by Deputy Mayor Giroux and seconded by Councillor Ellis that we go with the recommendation as presented. So I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Hold your hands up, please. Okay. I'm only seeing two votes on it, so I think it's going to have to be deferred and worked on. So, Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to have a look at it, because
Yeah.
I was under the impression that it came the other way, and I don't know.
I think, like Councillor Webb said, there's no rush on this. Let's look at that and let's make sure we do it right.
Yep.
I think the policy is a good policy. I think it was just a little tweak in here that maybe needs to look at. So maybe we could, you know, have some discussion at the next meeting around the council side of things, and see what everybody's thoughts are on that and make it right. So, okay, so it was defeated. Deputy Mayor Giroux, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, through you. Thank you, David, for your work on this. And I do think it's a good policy, but I also believe at this point, perhaps I didn't quite understand it, as the mayor has pointed out. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm sure council can figure this out. It's not that big a deal. And I do agree with Hart, or Councillor Webb, pardon me, Hart, that we have to be careful what we're doing here. So let's try and work together and figure this out. Thank you.
Okay.
To summarize then, if we address the council piece and make sure we have consistency in your message, and the current proposal is updated with this this additional caveat, are we on the same page then in terms of how this is going to be reviewed at the next meeting?
Well, that's, and you know, I'll look to Bob here, but that's a good point there, David. Like I would be prepared, like to make the motion, but I can't. But if we had a motion that was, I guess, reverse to what we were hearing, I don't have a problem with that to come forward. I guess it would have to come at the next meeting, but or I don't know whether it can be done now, Bob, but there might need to be more discussion on it. But yeah, if there was a motion just kind of reversing the thoughts of what the council side of things are, I would have no problem supporting that. But I don't know what council's thoughts are, and I think it's going to maybe need some discussion. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
I would, thank you, Mayor Martin. I would ask our CEO's opinion on this, but when it comes to the point in the meeting where we talk about verbal notices of motion, perhaps we come up then and someone could wordsmith a verbal notice of motion for our next meeting on this subject. Was that possible, Bob?
Through you, Mayor Martin, yes, we could do it that way. We could also do it the way Mayor Martin suggested, if you wish to address it right now and simply add the cost of living adjustment to the counselor portion of it, and that seems to address the mayor's concern. We could do it that way as well. It's completely up to council, but we can take it either way you like.
Well, in order for, as long as the rest of council understands it fully, I'd be prepared to make that motion.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion that we, the formula for the council portion of any increases would be based on the council. For the mayor's portion would be based on councillor increases. Go ahead, Councillor Pomeroy.
Yeah, I could probably go along with that, but I want to see the figures, like. In essence, 3%. That's great, but I don't want to see the variance on the top end neither. So a counselor, say they get, like I say, 10 cents and so the mayor gets 10 cents, right? And, you know,
it keeps the spread. Yeah, I figured it out the other way to see how it worked out. And if it was done the way that you were saying, the mayor would get in, and I didn't have the 100% numbers, but it would say be $940 a year increase for the mayor and $540 for council. This way it would be $540 right across the board for councillors, deputy mayor, and mayor.
Mayor and deputy mayor.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I can go along with that.
Okay, Councillor Webb, go ahead.
Well, just to further to Councillor Pomeroy's point, why don't we just bring it back so we can all look at the numbers and the public can look at the numbers as well?
Yep. So I'm just going to ask if there's a second, or we have a motion on the floor. I'm just going to see if there's anyone that wants to second that. And if not, we can bring it back. So
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor. Move things along.
okay, we do have a seconder for the motion, and the motion would be that we base the council increases, the mayor's would be based on the councillor increase, to keep the spread the same as what it is. So does that work, Bob? Is that, you can clean it up a little bit, but does that motion work?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, we'll wordsmith it accordingly, but yes, that motion would work fine.
Okay, all right then, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. If there's any comments or questions around that, you're welcome to get it out now, or I'll call the question. Go ahead, Councillor Webb.
So it's a 3% for council and staff?
Yeah, it's the same, but it's just the formula for the council is a little different, that's all. Maybe, I gotta look at it, but it's more clear on the council side of things. Keep the spread.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so the motion's on the floor. I'm gonna call a question. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So, okay, so thank you, David. If you can look into straighten that part of it out, I think it'll work all right. So thank you for all the work you did on this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
I froze up there. Like, what happened? Did it pass or did it not pass?
Yeah, it did, Hart.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been having troubles too. And you have been breaking up a lot. You may find it easier sometimes to shut the video off. It sometimes helps on the audio side of things, but it's up to you. We do like seeing your smiling face, but if you find it a problem, that's the easiest way to help it a little bit is to shut the video off. So, okay, we'll move on then. The next report here is from our chief building official with regards to trailer park bylaw.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. This could be, John, do you want to take this or you want me to take this?
You can go ahead, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. I'll start this one, Mayor Martin, and we may do this as a tag team. However, Mayor Martin, this report brings forward a draft bylaw to regulate and govern tourist camps and trailer camps as per council direction. This has been an item on our to-do list. And this bylaw brings forward a number of regulations, which includes the establishment of a one-time permit fee for new trailer or tourist camps, and the annual trailer and tourist camp license, which includes a fee of $100 plus 10 per campsite. And there's also a number of stipulations in this draft bylaw which allow for inspection and allow for site review. This bylaw was very much a team effort between all members of the clerk's department, the building department, and the planning department. So we all got together and worked on this. And I would like to particularly acknowledge the work of our deputy clerk, who spent many hours putting this together. So this is a bylaw we're bringing forward as a draft, further to review from our planning consultant and municipal solicitor.
Okay, and it's very well done and long overdue, I think. So we've had a lot of discussion around trailer parks, and this is something that once again could help us regulate it and have a policy in place that deals with it. So, John, did you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I just wanted to add to what the CAO has said, that our deputy clerk spent a lot of hours and staff has spent a lot of work doing this. This now gives the tools for staff in bylaw enforcement and building to go onto site and inspect, and will hopefully help us in the future to control camping on these sites.
Okay. Councillor Webb, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to thank John and everybody involved for all the work that went into this, Matt, I guess, as well. John, my question is the complaints I get, I don't know, it could be addressed in there, but I couldn't find it. So, say we have a trailer park, and do we have, what is the process for designating how many trailers or whatnot are in said trailer park?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is area constraints. So it's going to say on there, number one, they got to provide enough sanitary or septic for the trailer sites, as well as potable water. But there is a minimum area per site, and they would have to provide us with a survey or a map site plan showing the sites and the sizes of the sites. And then there would be a fee per year per site. And with this, we'd be able to regulate and follow up on how many sites are actually on the campgrounds.
Okay, so with, say, some of the campsites we have now, for each campsite, there should be a hard number in terms of how many, no more than this number, amount of campsites or campers are allowed in said campground?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So they would have to provide the site plan with the area per camping and the capacity of the septic and water, and they would apply for, very similar to I guess a car license, where you apply for licenses for each vehicle you have. They would have to apply for the permit for each campsite that they have.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, I guess what I'm getting at is, okay, say we have I'll give an example, maybe it's easier. Say we have a trailer park or whatever, and it's got, we've, as the township said, it can have 15 trailers in it. We have a document that says that trailer park is at 15. So then we have somebody phones in and says there's 18 trailer park. How do we go about rectifying that? Like, do we go and we find that sheet that says there's only supposed to be 15 in there? Because the complaints I'm getting are from these parks that used to have 10 or 12 campsites, and now there's 18 or 20. And every time, like when calls are made or whatnot, I don't know, just they seem to be able to get around it. And I'm just saying, if do we have that so that when we show up, we say, no, this is a hard number, and anything over that, then they'll get fined or whatnot.
Through Mayor Martin, yes, that's the intent. That presently we don't know how many campsites are on the property. If a campground has large acreages and it has the space and the septic and the water available, then they're going to have to provide that information and pay the fee to increase it. They wouldn't be permitted to have a small site and put lots of camp trailers on it close together. Of course, that has a fire concern as well as an environmental concern. And that's part of what this is about, is limiting the number. But to start with, to get a permit, to have a license with a number on it, because presently we don't have any numbers.
Okay, yeah, no, and I guess that's my point exactly, is that it's hard to I guess, mediate some of these problems, right? If we don't have a number ourselves. But if that's where we're going, then I like to hear that. And thank you very much for all the work on this, John.
Okay, any other questions or comments for John or Bob? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Terrell.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. First of all, thanks all that were involved in this. It's quite a lengthy document, and we certainly appreciate it. We've talked about it for a long time, and here it is, and it's a draft. And before it goes on forward to our legal team, there's a couple of things that I quite can't get in my head. So we talk about a tourist camp in some incidents, and then trailer parks in another, but they're actually the same. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Martin. So because we went through a lot of different bylaws, but a lot of different municipalities, the terminology is a little bit different. And we were trying to get our terminology in this bylaw to match our zoning bylaw definitions and our OP definitions. And that's where the next step is, to take it to legal counsel to make sure it's enforceable, and to a professional land use planner to make sure that we have all the same terminologies defined in the zoning bylaw as well as this bylaw being the same.
Okay, John, thank you for that. The other clarification, under section, under administration 5.1, I believe it is, there's a fee. Is there a fee list? In other words, 5.1, the way I read it, says that if you have to go out, if any party has to go out, that trip will be billed to the owner, whether it's a trailer park or whatever we call it, a tourist camp. So do we have a fee structure yet to what that is?
So this is part of the discussion. That will have to be in our fees bylaw. So we can adjust that as we're working on our fees bylaw this year as part of budget. And that gives the opportunity if council thinks the fee is too high or too low. But we can't charge a fee unless, under the Municipal Act, unless we have it in a fees bylaw. So that is kind of a next step.
Next step. Okay, thank you for that. And let me see my notes here, John, if you give me a second here. I understood that one now. I understand the suspensions. I guess the biggest thing for me is that one is we're going to move forward with this, but I want to move forward in such a way that the taxpayer is not going to subsidize campgrounds or trailer parks. So when we do our fee structure, I guess that's where that comes into play. So
that might be where the annual fee comes in, that might be what that annual fee is used for anything to, and maybe that might be something to look at if we need to amend it. Maybe the annual fee isn't enough to allow for anything like you're saying, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of parties involved here, not only our building and bylaw and the fire department and so on. We're also public health, and the whole list, the whole gamut of things are going to be involved here. So if we don't do it right the first time, it's going to come back on our taxpayers. We're going to subsidize it. So yeah, that's my comments. There's a couple other things that I think that when we get talking through it, then I can ask the questions at that time then.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anywhere that we can send that to Crown Land too, John, that we could maybe send it to the province that they have to pay this fee too. Can we add that in there? Anyways, Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, in principle, it is very good, this bylaw, and it gives us somewhere to start. And I think John's comment earlier was we have to have some legal advice to make sure that, this is the document that we want. And I think if we approve this in principle, that they can go ahead and get legal counsel to have a look at this to see if we can force it the way it is, or is there any small changes that have to be made?
Yeah, I think it's a good start anyways, and we could keep it moving here anyways. And there is Deputy Mayor Joe makes a good point there, and as long as we're covering that part of it, if we have to send you out, I know we might make it up if we're going to find them, but there is a cost, and I guess I don't know how you deal with that, but that might be something for further discussion. But to keep this moving with the solicitor, it might be okay right now, and we can look at some of them other things as they pop up. What's council's thoughts here? Bob, go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mayor Martin, just further to comments from Deputy Mayor Giroux, just as a general comment, it is true that bylaw enforcement is expensive, and it can be, there's a lot of hours involved and often a lot of visits to locations. So it's a good point that Deputy Mayor Giroux brings forward.
Okay, so what's council's thoughts here on the recommendation here as it sits? Does anybody want to make a motion? If not, we can receive or we can move on with it. Deputy Mayor Giroux, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Martin. No, I think we should definitely proceed and have this go to legal counsel and see where we are. And hopefully we can move forward.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Giroux is moving this recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Pomeroy?
Yeah, with a question, please.
Yeah.
I'd like to approve it in principle, but like I said, I think we should have the lawyer look at it and cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that we're doing it right. Because it's long overdue, through the past few years, we've had a lot of problems, and it's a great document. But I think it's got to be enforceable too. That's my feeling on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to call a question. All in favor of the recommendation? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, John, Bianca, and everybody involved in this. That's good. It's a great start. So our next report here is the vaccination clinics, and it's kind of a good news thing if you're looking at the vaccinations. There's lots of people attending, and we have one going on today actually at the arena. But the numbers there are, encouraging. We've had some really good turnouts at the ones that have been held in town here. Did you have anything to add to that, Bob?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Thank you. You are right. We're having our fourth COVID vaccination clinic today. So the 3 previous vaccination clinics have been very successful. Welcome back, Councillor Pomeroy. He's still standing. Well done, sir. And we've also added as a supplementary item, we did have a rapid antigen test kit distribution over the Christmas holiday on December the 29th. It was extremely successful. 1,000 kits were distributed. So there has been a great deal of activity in Havelock with respect to Peterborough Public Health and COVID vaccinations and the whole COVID issue. So there is another clinic today, and we certainly encourage walk-ins. If it's your first or second vaccination, you may walk in to the clinic today. If it's a booster, you'll need an appointment.
Okay. Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd personally like to thank Bob for for arranging these things through the health unit. It's been very beneficial to the residents in Havelock and Belmont-Methuen. You know, you don't have to drive long ways, you know, like for their old people, and it's worked out very well. We've had great numbers, better than what they have in the city. So thank you, Bob.
Okay. Councillor Ellis, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly to, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Bob, thanks for the report. There's several people, it's quite amazing, really. Several people that have been following the vaccination clinics and asking how many people attend. So glad to see the report. I'm sure there'll be people watching this morning that'll be interested to see the good numbers there. Thank you, Bob.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, and thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. These clinics have been very well attended, and Peterborough Public Health has been very pleased with the turnouts in Havelock.
That's good. Okay, so we have a recommendation there in front of you. I'll look for a motion to approve the recommendation.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by, I have a seconder for that, Councillor Pomeroy. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. The next item is an item that comes up every year around this time, and it's with regards to Canada's summer jobs application. There's a recommendation here. What's council's thoughts on that? Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know when COVID's going to be over, and I don't think anyone else does either. So it's pretty hard to say that we need 2 students for, you know, for the Parks and Rec and the library. I know we need the dumps not, or the transfer site, I should say, will not shut down. We're definitely going to need help there. But I can't see if we got the okay for the rest of them. They're going to be tripping over one another, and we get it. They have enough people now on our case about some of our employees tripping over one another in COVID times because, you know, we never had any layoffs or anything else. So we're at a spot that we don't know whether we should or we don't know whether we shouldn't. And if we do, and can we maybe I'll have to go back to David and ask this question, but can we, if we are still locked down, can we turn these people or turn these applications down for the summer?
My suggestion that I reflected on our conversation earlier, Councillor, is it's best to proceed with the grant applications, pending whether we get 5 or pending whether we get 3. If we decide to halt the brakes now, we will get none. So I think it's better to keep the process in motion. I am of the belief, turn of this summer, that we will be operating, maybe not 100%, but certainly at 60 or 70%. And given Havelock being a remote, I'd say remote community, but the benefit of a student here to have summer work is immense. Reflecting on my past, my first summer job in Peterborough was to paint the subsidized housing in Peterborough as a summer student. I remember that job to this day. I was very grateful to have it. So I'm maybe a bit biased because of that memory, but I think we should proceed with the glass being half full, and the benefit of being able to employ more than 1 student, 2 students. That's my take on that.
Yeah, okay, and the application has to be in right away, I think the 15th, does it not?
Yeah, it's very soon, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Ellis, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and just to add to David's comments as well, depending on how severe COVID-19 is this summer, I think we're smart to carry on with the students. And then it would be up to the management team to utilize them. I'm sure you can always find work for them if you're on top of what you're doing, and make sure you utilize the students for the summer.
Okay, is that a motion then, Councillor Ellis, that we go with the recommendation?
Thank you. I would make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Giroux, you're seconding that? Okay, is there any other questions or comments around the motion? All in favor of the motion then?
Yeah.
And that's carried. Okay, thank you. Next, we don't have any correspondence today. So I was going to move into committee liaison reports. And if I can get to it. So with that, I'll look to Hart with economic development.
Well, the minutes are there from, geez, I don't know what date that was, August 31st. We had our last meetings December 22nd, right before Christmas. Had Sherry Gottschalk, the director from the Chamber of Commerce, came and made a very nice presentation to the committee about the Shop Local campaign and a few of the advertising and digital advertising things that they've been doing lately. We also had a new member from PCAD join us, Joe Reese, who is the brother of everybody knew Terry, that made the presentation this morning. So Joe will be replacing Tracy Bertrand, sitting in with the committee. Tracy's left and moved on to bigger and better things. And very excited to have Joe. He seems to have about the same enthusiasm level as Tracy, so that'll be good for the committee. Term-keeping issues, looked into preparing possibly HPM welcome packages for new businesses, and had a review of the social media policy for the town. So that something about that might be coming to council in upcoming months, and just a general discussion about our meeting time. So not too much, as I said, a lot of housekeeping and more. We're trying to get the chamber in to make a presentation. They've been wanting to come in for a month or two. So that's about it. Not too much. Any questions from anybody? I'd be willing to answer them.
Okay, Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I see branding has been mentioned a couple of times in our reports back, but we've never had anything come to council on branding and what it would cost to do this and what's the advantage to it. That's the questions that I would like to ask, because economic development, we don't have any in Havelock really to speak of, because we don't have a foundation. And the foundation is water and sewers. We don't have any more capacity for to build, for to build within the municipality. And we've talked about, expansions and the whole ball of wax, but we're not prepared for it. And we've kind of fiddled around here now for a few years. And sure, we have supposed to be a new expansion on our sewage treatment plant. We have not got any correspondence back from those people. The water, I think probably we could get away with it with what they've done. I know they have turned it on, and the Brown did not show up as previously. So if we don't have water and sewers, there's no expansion in our municipality. And to get a developer to come in, and we got to do it properly this time too. Like it can't be done haphazardly the way it was done before. it's, there's some work there to be done, but the foundation has to be built before we can go anywhere. You know, we can talk about it, but unless we do something, we're gonna be where we are. I don't care about whether you got an economic development committee or not. You're not gonna develop what we don't have.
So I can answer to that. The Economic Development Committee is just an advisory committee for council. And that's probably one of the reasons that we haven't brought the branding back, is we know it's expensive and we're just not ready for it. It's the subdivision or expansion that way is a small part of branding. Branding is a lot to do with what Havelock-Belmont-Methuen has to offer, which is a ton of things. So, you know, that's one of the reasons it hasn't come to council. I know you've seen it in there, and I think that's one of the reasons is we're just not ready yet. It's a very expensive venture, and we've said that to the committee. Councillor Webb, you can go ahead there, and then Deputy Mayor Giroux. Go ahead, Hart.
Oh, sorry, if you cut off there. Yeah, I was just gonna kind of see what you said. I think Councillor Pomeroy, you'll see this addressed at budget time. And then we can look at some real numbers in terms of what we're looking at in terms of a rebranding process. Yeah, I agree with you. We do have to look at our infrastructure and whatnot. I think we got staff working on that. But there are other things in this community, especially given what we've been going through the last 2 years. I think that ways that this committee can help out. In the past, it's nice that the chamber is coming back online to help out with a few of these things, but the fact is we have a number of businesses in this township, even before COVID, that were struggling, and this has just put, you know, an added weight on top of them. So maybe it's not the type of economic development you were looking for, but it is helping businesses in the area, you know, stay afloat and helping families put food on the table. So I agree that the pace with which we've done developing about is maybe not what you and I would like, but it is moving forward, and hopefully, you know, we can speed this up a little bit as we come out of this COVID funk that we've been in for about 1.5 years. So,
okay, Deputy Mayor Giroux, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Hart and the committee, the Economic Development Committee and the Advisory Committee. For me, it's a two-phase thing. We have businesses in our community, and I think in the last year or so, we are progressing in the right direction. We've got some great programs going on, and I think in the future they will continue and grow better. And yes, I do agree with the rest of council. We're not really prepared to get a big subdivision or whatever, a big box store or whatever we're going to talk about as a new business in town. But it's still a two-phase project, and we should be working on what we have right now and promoting that. So it will come. We are all impatient, but if we don't do the legwork first, it's not going to happen. So thanks, Councillor Webb, for what you do.
thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, we have minutes there from the October 13th meeting. I was looking for a motion to receive those minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Giroux, seconded by Councillor Webb. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and the one thing I skipped over was County Council update, and we haven't had a meeting since we last met. Our first meeting is 19th, I think it is. So next week. So we'll have an update at our next meeting. And as far as conference calls with the Christmas break, there wasn't a ton of calls. Or I did meet with Dave Smith last week, and a lot of it was around vaccines and school closures and things like that, which are already dealt with with the public today, with the schools going back on the 17th. And he was promoting some of the rapid test giveaways and things like that. But a lot of times with these meetings, by the time we get to them here, it's already in the public anyways. He's just giving us a heads up ahead of time. So, so there wasn't very many reports from me with regards to conference calls last month. Dave, you had something? Sorry, Deputy Mayor Giroux.
If I could go back, Mayor Martin, just for a second, in pertains to county. One thing I would like to give our council and staff a heads up on is the committee that you sit on and have sit on for quite a while with the roads needs study. We had a lengthy discussion at council over off-road vehicles, and shortly into the new year, we will have a presentation probably from county council, and I'm not sure who from, but they are going to go to the municipalities one more time. Now, we have went out with a survey and we got the results of that survey back. So that'll be all explained to council when they come. But basically, if I can look at a little bit of data here, we were given 3 potential approaches to selling this problem. Alternative 1 was to allow ORVs on all county roads. Alternative 2 was to allow ORVs use on certain sections of county roads, and the other one was not allow them at all. So it's hard to say. I think the middle ground perhaps county will be looking at, but I think in the future you're also going to have a presentation from our local ATV club. Heads up on that. And so we will have to wait for the presentation from county council. I just thought perhaps, Mayor, we should give them a heads up on that, because I think they will be coming to address council on which way that our council want to proceed with this matter. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Martin.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, that will be coming forward. And the one other thing that's happening at the county is next Thursday, we have a special meeting of council to introduce the draft budget from the county, and we're starting our process there. It's always hard doing when you want to talk about number crunching and you've got them coming from 3 different areas all at once. It's too bad we couldn't spread these things out, because it's number overrun here when you're trying to read 2 different budgets and keep them in line. But anyways, we're starting next Thursday, and you know, I'm sure it'll take 2 or 3 meetings before we can finalize it. But anyways, we have that to look forward to. Other than that, I don't have anything to report as far as liaison meetings. So, and there's nothing else listed here. So I'll look for a motion to receive those reports. Moved by Councillor Webb and seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, I don't have any written or oral notice of motions. So we're going to move into new business. And the only thing that I had listed on there was it was just an update, and I think we received the email last night. CAO Angioni and myself had a talk with Aon last week, and he provided us a letter of where they're going in the future here. And I think the big thing here is they're going back out to tender and hope that the numbers come in a little better. So on the 24th, if all goes well, they'll have the document ready to go out, and it'll close on the 11th of February. And with everything else around it, they don't know what to expect, but that's what this is for. And there's some issues around the ministry not providing. They still haven't gave them the development agreement yet, which is a big thing when you're trying to put a tender together. And if there's any changes that happen, they're really expensive to do the changes after you put the tender out. But they're going to do it anyways and see where it comes in. As you know, it came in way over budget the last time they did it, but at least it's moving forward. The last paragraph of that, you might want to read that we're not the only one in the province that hasn't been able to proceed. He named 3 of them that he was aware of just off the top of his head, and they're listed in the letter. But around Ontario, that ran into the same problem when they went out to tender. They come in way over budget, and the way he explained it is long-term care isn't something like private rentals. You just up the rent the next year and you can recoup your losses. Long-term care, the fee is set by the province, and you can't play with that. It is what it is. So you try and work with the numbers that you're provided from the province. So there's a lot in that letter, but you know, that's all we can report now. We did meet with them last week and got an update, and he did provide us with this letter. So Councillor Pomeroy, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, is our MPP, Mr. Smith, has he got anything to add to this? Because, you know, how many years has this been ongoing? And we get down, we think, to where we should be again. And there's always something when you think we're gonna go ahead that throws us behind. So how are we gonna get the government support here, you know, for this project? It's very disheartening.
And maybe we should take a different approach. I'm just wondering, and I haven't really thought about this, Barry, but when you have other long-term cares that have canceled their thing and they're putting them on hold right now because of the same problems we're having, I wonder if we should be reaching out to those municipalities and asking them, you know, maybe we could get together, and maybe we would be like this will be going to Dave Smith, our MPP, but maybe we should reach out to those other townships too, and maybe go united that, you know, these are really important for our community. We need some help here to get them moving. And, you know, it's just sometimes in numbers, it means a lot more than just us going after the province.
Granted, but is Dave doing anything for us? Is he getting any answers? Like, we seem to get an answer, but it's never a final. You know, there's no committal, and he's got to be committed on our behalf to get us an answer. And I agree with what you're saying. You know, get the other municipalities that are having a problem too, but I think we have to have Dave work for us and, you know, put his best foot forward, because this has been on the go for way too long.
And that's what we said. And Bob can maybe speak to this, but and I lost my train of thought. But anyways, it's Dave is working on it. The one comment that somebody from the province has been in touch with Aon, which I think they were, you know, it's obvious that there's some communication happening there. So that's all we can hope for. And like I say, it's a really complicated thing. But Bob, do you have anything to add?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, and just further to your comments, and to let council know, we did have a very good discussion with Mr. Smith at Aon. And the good news is, a huge step forward is the fact that it is being tendered. There will be a public tender at the end of this month, and we will be looking for that. And hopefully, if things come in at budget or under budget, that's a huge step forward. The final piece of the puzzle is to get that development agreement from the province. So there's two things going on at the same time. The tender is going out, and hopefully the numbers are right and it all works. As far as the province goes, Brad Smith did indicate that he's spoken to MPP Smith. They have had discussions, so that is moving forward in some fashion. So we await to hear the results of the discussions with the province. The province, unfortunately, one of the things Mr. Smith did indicate with COVID, it has put everyone behind, and it's difficult to get an answer from the province. Folks are working from home, and they're just not prompt in their replies. So that process is ongoing, but he has been working on it.
Okay, Councillor Pomeroy, then Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to use COVID-19 for the excuse this time, as what it's boiling down to. We're not getting an answer. Everybody's working from home. So what do they do at home? You know, if I know if I was the boss, I'd want to know if you have to answer a question, you answer it. You know, whether it be on the computer and you have to answer to someone. But anyway, I won't go there because it seems to me that, you know, there's going to be an election. And I think maybe if I was running in the election, I would want to try to please the people rather than discourage them. So I can think you could take that back to Dave Smith and whoever else. It's, you know, COVID-19 has been a big excuse as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts, and you can call MPP Smith too. It's all of council is welcome to call him. He's open to discussion, and you know, sometimes you get your own answers. That way your questions are answered directly instead of through me, but I have no problem. I do bring it up every time we meet, and he's been really good at coming back with answers to me. And this meeting that Bob and I had was just another thing that it was better with two of us there, so we both pick up on the information. But the letter that that Brad sent us is something we asked for, and it was timely that we get it on for this meeting today. So Councillor Ellis, you had a question, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just shortly here to Bob. Can you give me a reminder of what the extension date was that was given? And was there a reply from them from the letter that was sent not too awful long ago? Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. The extension date is March 4th of this year. We've received no reply in writing to the letter that was sent, but we do know that the letter was received.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. So I'll look for a motion to receive that report if there's no other questions. Moved by Councillor Webb. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellis. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. That's all I have listed for new business. So if there's nothing else, I'll move on to bylaws. We have no bylaws. So with that, I'll look for a motion for the confirming bylaw for today's meeting. Do I have a motion? Moved by Councillor Webb, seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. All in favor? And that's carried. And a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Pomeroy and seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried.